Peter, and hello everyone. So today I'm going to talk about ESG disclosure and how disclosure can advance corporate sustainability with the example of the Open for Good platform. So there are three main subjects I want to discuss today. First, what are the mechanisms and challenges for effective corporate sustainability disclosure? What is the state of corporate sustainability disclosure in the largest US firms? And then how can academia encourage metrics credibility and transparency? And I will present the Open for Good project that we've developed. So first, what is kind of the theory behind disclosure? What should firms disclose and what are we expecting in terms of the mechanism that lead to actual change in businesses? So first, there's the measurement. The firm is gathering data to evaluate what it's currently doing and how it impacts the planet or society. We're talking about sustainability, environmental and social issues mostly. Then it can compare, realize the gap compared to the norms or best practices if it is public disclosure. If the data is trusted, then it could also experience peer pressure from other firms that are actually disclosing. And in doing so, also potentially be motivated, not just because competitors are doing, but also because sustainable, socially responsible investors can provide better access to capital and potentially, also improve customer loyalty. Then once the firm is motivated, that's to learn, right, from other practices implemented by competitors. And then it will improve the current practices, maybe adopt new practices and go back to the beginning and measuring kind of the effect. So these steps of measurement, comparison, and peer pressure and learning are going to work if there's standardized reporting. You can't compare if there are apples to oranges. You cannot compare if there are only a few subset of companies that are disclosing. So you need wide-reaching disclosure, and you need also credibility in the measurement. You need to trust what is measured. So these are important elements. And we know that standardized reporting, wide-reaching disclosure, and credible measurement are difficult to achieve in the current context. Indeed, as we know, at this point, everyone reports differently, although we know there is, there are efforts to move towards standardized reporting. Second, disclosure is still voluntary in most parts of the world, and so that means that there's not wide-reaching disclosure. And third, measurement and the metrics are kind of different because of the lack of standardization, but also in their kind of nature, metrics of business, social, and environmental impacts are complex. So all of this makes it sometimes, less credible in some cases. So because of this, we expect little disclosure because of these challenges that are there. And so the next question is, once we have identified the mechanism and the challenges, what is the state of corporate sustainability disclosure in the largest US firms? Why the largest US firms? Because these are those that have the most, the most resources to, to kind of spend on disclosing and thinking about, corporate sustainability. So what we did is we collected data on, environmental and social and governance metrics in the starting Fortune 300 companies and then S&P 500 on the following topics: environmental, social governance. The environment, you see greenhouse gas emission, land use, water use, social, employee diversity, compensation practices, governance is board competencies, diversity, experience. All of these are some of the most agreed upon metrics and kind of issued in the World Economic Forum white paper a couple of years ago. So they are kind of expected to be adopted by a lot of firms already. So what we did is we looked at the Fortune 300 companies, and what we did find is that on average, firms disclose less than 50% of these metrics, with highest disclosure being 74.8% and lower disclosure being 14.8%, 15%. We see, of course, a lot of disclosure on the governance pillar here, because a lot of it is regulated and required, much less on the social side, people here, and on the planet, 43. So these numbers are pretty low, with also a lack of external verification. So it's kind of, difficult to see how this information can be useful at this point, based on the mechanism we described before. So how do we get information? So far, how firms do get information on others to compare and to improve. Most of it is done through this research organization that kind of collect data through questionnaires or looking at the corporate disclosure of firms. Unfortunately, it's very hard to kind of figure out really how this information is gathered. These are mostly for-profit organizations that actually sell the data, and therefore, there's some kind of conflict of interest in terms of being completely transparent about the methodology, because then they'll be potentially copied. So it is not kind of the best way to get this information at this point. So the question then becomes, how can academia encourage metrics credibility and transparency? And this is what we started, this Open for Good platform, which is a platform for providing transparent, unbiased, and accessible insight into corporate sustainability based on what firms are currently disclosing publicly. So what we're doing is what we're providing is a dashboard where people, and it's available on our website, can look at the disclosure by sector and by firm. And we are looking at the S&P 500 at this point. So what we do is we collect data on all of these variables. We have 39 variables. Some of them I described earlier. And we look at whether the firm is disclosing or not disclosing this publicly, either on their corporate sustainability report or on their website. And you can see here, overall by sector, that if we look at the environment, so we have this ability, because we don't know, how to provide basically weights on environmental, social, and governance. Should they be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, or, so here, for example, we, on our website, you can decide what the weight you want to put on each of these pillars. So if you put 100% on the environment, in this case, you can see that electric utilities or the utilities are those that disclose the most, 61% on these environmental metrics, which are metrics related to greenhouse gas emissions, water, and land use, 61%. Why? These have been, regulated for a while, but you can see much less in communication services, for example. If you decide, on the other hand, to put your, kind of weights on social, 100% here, for example, you see a different, kind of set of sectors here. Consumer staples is much more likely to disclose this information. Next is we do have this, kind of indexed on the firms that are disclosing, and we kind of create this index and looking at the firms that are disclosing the most, which you can change again depending on, with the slider, depending on the weight that you provide on each of these elements. So you can see here we put 50% or 50% and 50%, so it's kind of 1/3, 1/3. This is kind of the list of companies, the ranking of the companies that are disclosing the most in this, on this, all of the metrics. You can also look at by transparency for each company, and here you have, and this is for social here, if you have a green dot for, that means that the company disclose, these metrics. Potential disclosure is yellow, and then no disclosure. So partial disclosure, is kind of, disclose some of it. There's some information is not fully disclosed. So we do have this on the website where you can look at companies and see how well they're disclosing. So to conclude, we are far from the ideal case for corporate sustainability disclosure, where we would have, kind of standardized metrics that are comparable and adopted by all. and government-mandated sustainability disclosure seems to be necessary to move forward, as we see much more disclosure when this is regulated, and we know this is coming in Europe and in the United States. But at the same time, I feel that university initiatives that provide just kind of unbiased information about what firms are currently doing could potentially help firms, kind of improve their, corporate sustainability. For example, when we look at this, the firms can look at what they're doing and really be compared by sector. So they can look at, the sector, they can look, by size and see, how they fare compared to others currently. I don't think there's just, that many places for where firms can do that publicly, or stakeholders, by the way. So I thank you very much for listening to this presentation, and please feel free to look at our website, the Open for Good website at UCLA. Here is the link, and otherwise you can contact me. I'm Magali Delmas, and my email is delmas@ucla.edu. Thank you very much.